Come on back, guys. Back there. What are we doing? Yo, what are you looking for? You looking for somebody? We got nobody in here.
Oh, pictures, sir. Is that enough? Or you want the marshals to arrest you?
Come up on your left? No, that on your side. Gotta come up on your side.
Mine is so old it won't come off the machine. Gus has one small piece here. Oh! Oh! Why, sorry? Pardon. Oops.
You would hold that up for me? That must be Nick.
Names on the chairs, on the backs. The Attorney General's sent a press release, I think, on the task force, which was
You tell me if you're ready. Whose is this? Angle. Everybody ready?
We are.
Everyone ready? Particularly appropriate that Attorney General William French Smith announce today's arrests and complaints, because without him, these cases at this scope and level would not have been made. The actions he took in giving the FBI concurrent jurisdiction with DEA over drug enforcement, in creating 12 organized crime drug enforcement task forces spanning the nation, and his own personal travels to Asia, Italy, South America, and elsewhere to forge agreements and working relationships with foreign countries on drug enforcement matters built the structure and the relationships necessary to put together the case that resulted today. It is an honor to present the Attorney General of the United States.
Thank you, Rudy. I'm announcing today a development of great importance in the federal government's all-out fight against drug trafficking. 31 persons have been charged in New York City in the operation of a major international heroin trafficking ring. Of those 31, 24 have already been arrested. It is the most significant case involving heroin trafficking by traditional organized crime that has ever been developed by the government. The heroin trafficking ring was created by an association of organized crime families in the New York area. We estimate that the ring has imported at least 330 pounds of heroin a year for the past 5 years. The 5-year total importation is at least 1,650 pounds of heroin. Its street level value is $1,650 million. The significance of the case is not only in the amount of drugs. Federal officials know of no other case that so clearly documents the scope of an international heroin ring. They can recall no other case that establishes so clearly the distribution pattern of heroin within this country. The ring distributed heroin in such major urban areas as New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, Detroit, and Newark. Our investigation has covered New York State, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New Jersey, Wisconsin, and Florida. In cooperation with other governments, the investigation has extended far beyond our borders, including Italy, Switzerland, France, Spain, and Canada. The case was developed by the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force program, which became fully operational last summer. The program was created by President Reagan to target all available federal resources in highly coordinated attacks against drug rings. Resources were increased, more funds, 200 new prosecutors, 1,000 new agents. The 12 task forces which cover the nation have already indicted 535 cases and obtained indictments against more than 1,840 defendants. Those achievements were documented in the first annual report on the task force program, which you now have, or which are available here this afternoon. As you will see, remarkable accomplishments have been fashioned in a matter of months. Our goal is to destroy the major drug trafficking organizations and to imprison the drug kingpins, financiers, and money launderers. Our goal is to choke off trafficking and to be able to do thus eventually, and to eventually reduce much of the violent crime caused by drugs. The task forces bring together a variety of federal agencies and resources. They include the United States Attorney's offices, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Drug Enforcement Administration, Customs Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Internal Revenue Service, Coast Guard, Marshal Service, and the Immigration and Naturalization Service. A key part of the foundation of the task force program was developed in 1981. It was then that the full resources of the FBI were thrown into the fight against drugs for the first time in its history. DEA was reorganized and given new leadership, and DEA now reports to the FBI in what has become a model of coordination and cooperation. State and local agencies play a key role in the task force program. One of the vehicles for this new level of cooperation are the law enforcement coordinating committees. Federal, state, and local officials work together in every part of the country to target all available resources on the worst local crime problems. And there has been agreement in each of those districts that drug trafficking is the principal crime problem. Today's case is a textbook example of the new sophistication being brought against drugs by the federal agents and prosecutors who make up the task forces. The Federal Bureau of Investigation committed massive resources to the development of this case. Hundreds of agents trailed the suspected drug traffickers, trailed them from home to work to meetings, to other cities, to other countries. As our evidence will show, agents watched scores of exchanges of boxes, bags, and briefcases, money being exchanged for heroin. In New York City alone, the FBI conducted court-approved electronic surveillance of more than 300 telephone conversations. Valuable information came from this monitoring. The surveillance provided additional proof of traffickers making heroin deals, often with suppliers in other countries. The drug trafficking operations were carried out by an organized crime group known as the Catalano faction of the Bonanno family of La Cosa Nostra. The Bonanno family is one of 5 organized crime families in the New York City area. The Catalano faction is composed of members of the Bonanno family as well as members of other La Cosa Nostra families. The defendants charged today include the leaders of the Catalano faction. The defendants also include the leaders of the overseas organizations that produce and distribute heroin. There were many contributions to the successful development of this case. In addition to the FBI, federal agencies include the Drug Enforcement Administration, Customs Service, the Internal Revenue Service, the Marshal Service, and the Immigration Service. Rudy Giuliani, the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, who filed the complaint here today, gave top priority to development of this case. So did United States Attorneys Hunt Dumont of Newark, Ed Dennis of Philadelphia, and Len Gilman of Detroit, who all filed related complaints today. I want to thank Commissioner Benjamin Ward for the excellent assistance given by the New York City Police Department. Major assistance also came from Sterling Johnson, the New York City Special Narcotics Prosecutor, and Ronald Goldstock, the New York State Organized Crime Task Force Prosecutor. The New York State Police also made noteworthy contributions. And we are particularly grateful to the governments of Italy, Switzerland, Spain, France, Canada, West Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg for exceptional assistance in this investigation. The struggle against drug trafficking is not easy. It takes a high level of cooperation, resources, dedicated personnel, and patience. For decades, the nation did not mount effective programs against drugs. But there is today a new emerging hope, a hope that coordinated efforts by federal, state, and local authorities can make a difference. We have a long way to go, but we are beginning to see some very encouraging results.
William H. Webster has led the FBI during a period of very substantial transition. Under his leadership, the FBI has already had the greatest successes in its history against organized crime, and it has built a strong role for itself in drug enforcement beside DEA, Customs, and agencies like the New York City Police Department. It is a pleasure to introduce Judge Webster.
Thank you, Rudy. Today, the Attorney General has made available to you the details of the most significant case involving heroin trafficking by traditional organized crime that the federal government has ever developed with the aid of local law enforcement. It's an honor for me to be here to represent the men and women of the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and other law enforcement agencies who have, along with the prosecutors, worked long hours, sometimes at great personal risk, to make the results that are announced here today possible. This morning, over 600 law enforcement officers of the FBI, the Drug Enforcement Agency, Customs, the New York City Police Department, the Internal Revenue Service, and other local law enforcement agencies elsewhere in the country participated in the arrests and searches resulting from the announcement of this case today. This is the kind of case that we envisaged when the Attorney General brought the FBI into the fight against drugs and narcotics in January 1982. In 1980, the Drug Enforcement Administration developed an important narcotics investigation in Philadelphia and acquainted the FBI with some of its findings and intelligence. At the same time, the FBI, in concert with local law enforcement officers, were developing organized crime cases in Buffalo, in Newark, and in New York City. Soon we were engaged in joint investigations in these cases, and at the same time had begun an extensive effort to track money and narcotics efforts by organized crime figures in this country and to their connections in Italy, working with the Italian government and with the Swiss government in connection with the money laundering. This case did not just happen. A process of heavy intelligence efforts, the use of the most sensitive lawful techniques, including undercover agents, informants, electronic surveillance, and the most advanced computerized intelligence apparatus that the Drug Enforcement Administration and the FBI could put together, made possible the identification of a new group of Sicilian nationals participating with traditional La Cosa Nostra groups in the United States. By 1983, this new group had been identified, and we stayed with the charter given to us by the Attorney General, not to content ourselves at the drug enforcement task forces with mere street buys and arrests, but to reach beyond the streets up into the upper echelons of organized crime. And as a result of that, this year, this investigation carried us further into Chicago and Milwaukee and Detroit. The shared intelligence analysis extended to law enforcement officers in Italy, where both the Attorney General and I have visited, as has DEA Administrator Bud Mullen. DEA has done an admirable job in its mission. The advent of the FBI into this fight has brought new techniques and new facilities. The ability to help DEA with court-authorized wiretaps, more effort in organized crime in drugs, in financial crimes in drugs, and in public corruption in drugs. And this, I think, is a sterling example of the kind of work that the Attorney General challenged us to do, and then the President himself last summer in dedicating or proclaiming the 75th anniversary of the FBI, when he challenged us to break the back and ultimately cripple organized crime in America. We have a long way to go, and no one investigation assures the permanent solution to the drug problem. But from almost zero in 1982, we have over 1,800 current high-impact cases in the FBI, over 700 of those being investigated jointly with the Drug Enforcement Administration. The level of cooperation that has existed between the federal agencies and the state and local law enforcement officers in this case should, as the Attorney General stated, provide a model for the future to America's #1 crime problem. Thank you.
Federal officials say many of the exchanges of cash for heroin took place in small pizzerias like this one in Lower Manhattan, many owned by those charged in the indictment. And apparently, pizza boxes were actually used to carry the cash and heroin in and out of the premises.
falling down. Falling down.
You know you're still rolling, right?
Rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. This here is no longer San Giuseppe Pizzeria. It's been changed to protect the innocent. It's now Al Dente.